Jerry, do you want to explain a wee bit about that? Because you were, of course, involved in the development of it.
I was, and thanks Shirley, I was along with the other catering and education colleagues. It's a digital framework, a tool if you like, that offers a way to find out what is working well and what could be improved about food provision. Food as a context for learning and the food experience of children and young people in school settings. It uses robust evidence, and that's the key in evaluating quality, and the framework follows the format of How Good Is Our School that will be all too familiar to educators. Gathering evidence to look closely at aspects of school work around food helps support a better understanding between actions taken and the impact these have on children and young people's health and well-being. Leslie Kirkwood will explain a bit about the background to the framework.
So we did. We thought, if How Good Is Our School is already a framework that education colleagues are familiar with, and catering colleagues less familiar with, but they are aware of it through school inspections. They know that the framework exists. So we thought, well, let's look at that and see how we can adapt it to make it kind of focusing on food in schools. Again, we worked with our colleagues on this. It wasn't just that, we felt the main focus had to be the Health Promotion and Nutrition Act, but we also understand that there are other aspects to the work in schools that support that, the food in schools across Scotland. So it was to try and not lose sight of those things. So if we looked at the home page, if we just had a quick look at that, you'd be able to see how we've broken that down. So we have the kind of home page, we've got an area on the background, we've got the quality indicators, and there are drop-down menus in each of those tabs. We've also got a resources page as well to help people understand the kind of bigger picture around self-evaluation, but also we've put some resources in there to help people start discussions, see that bigger picture, and we'll continue to update that as things progress, and we'll put in kind of the most current links. So again, just think about the format of it, why we initially started with a paper document and moved to an online resource was so we can keep it current, but also so we can get input from people who are actually using the framework and doing the work and kind of working with them to populate things into the resource as we go along. So as I said, the quality indicators were given a kind of bit of background and an explanation as to what that quality indicator covers. And then for each of the quality indicators, we've got sections on how we would gather the evidence and where you might find that evidence. We would analyse the evidence, and then we would evaluate it. So each quality indicator goes through the same process. And again, it's just trying to reinforce that there is a process there, follow the process, and it'll help you find the answers that you're looking for. We've tried to kind of debunk some myths around what it is and isn't. And I'd say the whole thing has been trying to support improvement and understanding in the system.
So Leslie mentioned about a tools and resources section, and that the framework's not about educators only. So if you think about who you would expect to see being involved in working with this framework, everybody, as I've said before, everybody involved with food in school has a role to play in reflecting upon the quality of that food provision and making things better, be that food, whether it's breakfast time, nurture groups, lunchtime, food used in practical cooking activities or in enterprise activities. And that will involve all support staff in school, teachers, catering staff, and it would be important to also maybe engage there with some of your partners, whether that be parents or food providers, or it could be a local allotment group, RET, the Royal Highland Educational Trust. All these kind of people will be your partners in terms of food in schools, and it would be important to engage with all of them to look at the quality of what it is you're providing in terms of food as a context for learning or the food experience for children and young people. So the experience of different staff groups could give quite a varied, could be quite varied. So the framework includes a section with suggestions on how you might work together with different people, because different people will have a different experience of self-evaluation. but it gives examples of what a successful joined-up approach to self-evaluation could look like, drawing on that expertise from different people. The framework also uses language that's inclusive, language that everyone can access to help them see the role that they have to play and the role that others have to play. The worry when we were putting this together, you maybe remember, Jerry, was that the language might be exclusive. It might turn people off, some of the sort of very technical things, and I completely get that. So we tried really hard to make sure that the language would include everybody and that everybody could see where they fitted within this process. And it's important that nobody sees that what they do is separate from that collective contribution here. So Leslie's going to explain a wee bit more about a couple of the other resources included within the framework.
I think there's two resources in particular which I think are really useful, and we also talk about potential starting points for people, so you don't have to jump in at the first QI that's listed. It's about stepping back and having a think about, well, let's have an honest discussion around where we are. And one of the resources, there are two sketch notes, but one of them looks at kind of food in schools in the round, and it helps people maybe identify where their role might be, but it also helps them see the role of others. And I think that initial discussion around, well, what does it mean, and how does it make a difference, and well, are we as good as we think we are, and how do we know that? It's those sort of things. But I think the sketch notes in particular are a great kind of visual representation of what it could look like.
I can certainly see how the sketch notes could be used to stimulate great conversations, actually, but also it shows how everyone's voices need to be heard. To answer that question that Leslie posted, and this is one that I think we've talked about before within in the area of school food, are we as good as we think we are? And it's that question of yeah, if we think we're good, but is good really good enough? How can it be better? What do we need to look at to make things better in schools? And Jerry, from your perspective as a school catering service manager, how do you see school catering staff being involved in evaluating the quality of that delivery of food in schools as part of a whole school approach?
The catering staff are really my eyes and ears on the ground in relation to evaluating what menu items are popular among pupils, and in turn, those menu items that are not so popular. I receive regular feedback from catering staff, who on many occasions are parents who raise issues that result in menu modifications if required. They're also responsible for dealing with any food quality issues by completing supplier complaint forms, which result in myself liaising with suppliers to rectify any faults. And the catering staff are also trained to encourage pupils to try different menu items in relation to different textures, tastes and healthy options. Another way the catering staff evaluate the quality of food is that food waste is monitored on a daily basis, and also provides a guide to unpopular menu items so that we can change them as soon as possible. To ensure that all schools are providing the same quality of food and presentation, each school is issued with photographic menu packs and classroom planners, and they act as a discussion poster within classrooms and the dining room.